Now we're going to talk about AI adoption, Ed. In the financial sector, it's rapidly increasing. It's all according to a new report by AI benchmarking platform Evident. Now, the rate of AI utilization is actually happening twice as fast, though, in the top performers, the top 10 banks of this index. Let's dig in. Evident CEO Alexandra Mousavizadeh is with us now. And Alexandra, it does seem to be that if you put a lot of talent and focus and energy and R&D in, you're winning and you're going to continue winning.
Yes, you are, Caroline. Yes, we released the index today. And as you know, it's covering the 50 largest banks in the US and Europe. And we cover all of those aspects, as in looking at the talent stack and the innovation levers that the banks are pulling. We're also very carefully tracking what the banks are reporting on in terms of their use cases and their ROI, and also looking at the responsible AI side. And what we see is that the leaders are pulling ahead and leading more at double the pace of the rest of top 10 ranked banks in the index are moving at double pace from the rest of the banks in the index, which should indicate and does indicate a bifurcation in the rankings. So the leaders are leading more, and the ones that are following or standing still are actually falling behind in this race.
Now, Alexandra, I'm pretty certain that social media accounts like Overheard on Wall Street and Wall Street memes are listening to this, because there are two things here: banks and AI. And in our world, that is everything. Mm-hmm. So here's the question. What is it that makes a bank good or not good at AI?
Well, we look at the strength of the capability of the bank. So all of the aspects that goes into a very strong ecosystem that moves a use case from ideation to production. So a good bank is able to move that through the system, so identify where you have problems, where AI can be a solution to those problems, and move them into a testing phase and then into a production of a use case using Gen AI. So a good bank can do that very quickly, and all of the elements that are needed to move the use case into production swiftly and well and with the intended ROI have the strengths of those component parts.
Okay, so we're showing JP Morgan, Capital One, and RBC. And so based on your report, they are top 3 performers. Is it that they just hired the best computer scientists early, the best engineers early? What did they do differently to the rest of the list?
Yeah, the common denominator of the leading banks is that they went out early and they went in big, and they reorganized the bank to look more like a tech company. So an AI-first business that has a research lab, that is attracting the best talent, that is reorganizing the bank from inside, looking at the data infrastructure, looking at this question of build versus buy, looking at the decision making, whether that lies in the center of the bank or if it's federated, and striking that balance. So what these leading banks did is that they went out early. Jamie Dimon famously laid out the AI strategy for JP Morgan in 2018 and established a research lab and really went to work on looking at how to reorganize the bank so it could respond to the oncoming technology swiftly and easily and get that time to production down and really infuse the bank with AI thinking, an AI mindset, and a nimbleness. And that is what they're reaping the benefits of now. Not that they're standing still, they're moving at double pace of other banks continuously, and to spend more on AI, hire more people, and continue the research and the patents and the partnerships that are delivering the impact that they hope to get from their AI investments. Jamie Dimon said this year that the ROI from his AI investments is at $2 billion. So that's quite significant. Who else
is making money? Who else is managing to see a return on investment? Because everyone's desperate for that.
Everyone's measuring the impact internally. Only 2 banks in the list of 50 are actually talking explicitly about their ROI. That's JP Morgan and that's DBS out in Singapore. But this is going to ramp up. So we think that in the next 6 to 12, maybe 18 months, really as AI use cases move into production more solidly, and the pressure to show ROI of that investment is going to ramp up. And the ROI is being measured internally in the banks. And we're seeing many of the banks looking at how is it impacting on non-numerical terms and numerical terms. But we're going to see a cascade of announcements of ROI, we think probably from about 6 to 12 months on.
Well, that's what's so interesting on the timing of the report. We've just had banks' earnings season. So I guess, did you see any early evidence that gets you excited for future reports of ROI?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it was also other factors that were going on in the earnings calls around the rates and geopolitics, of course. But there were 4 banks that were asked about their AI strategy and spend and use cases and the impact it's having. And so Jamie Dimon was asked. There was also Ted Pick from Morgan Stanley was asked. BNY and Bank of America were asked specifically about what they were expecting to see in terms of their AI investments and where they see that having an impact. And Ted Pick actually went into a lot of detail on a tool that they've rolled out across Morgan Stanley called Debrief that is something that they're trying to put in the hands of many across the bank, an AI service that helps manage meetings and responses and so on. But we must remember that we're in the early innings. It is a big and monumental transformation, and we're only 2 years in, so there's a lot to come, and the tools are getting better and better with much more reliability and speed. But we're looking at, in the next year or two, seeing what we call agentic AI come in and being tested out and being a potential tool for the banks to consider and are considering already. And that's going to be a real game changer on many accounts.
So agents, front and center, what are they using? Are they using models? Are they building all on OpenAI largely? And what are the frustrations?
On the agentic AI or on the...
No, just more broadly, what models have been deployed? Are they building them from within, depending on their own large language models, deploying from OpenAI and the competitors?
Most of the banks are looking at the variety of models out there. So it could be OpenAI, Anthropic that you were mentioning before, Mistral, Hugging Face. Every model has a uniqueness. And when you're looking at the variety of use cases and problems that you're trying to solve in the bank, there will be different types of models that would need to be deployed and fitted, and then the building and the engineering of making it fit on your own data used for your own systems in a particular way that is unique for you, depending on what type of bank you are. You're looking at these variety of large language models that each have their own features, and but then they get bought in and then they get implemented and fitted into the data, into the system of the bank.